Remember when you used to believe in yourself and actually get things done consistently? When you had the energy and the courage to put in the work and you'd never ever thought about failing? What changed? Why are you not performing at the level you know you can? You certainly didn't lose potential. Now you have more experience, more skills, more capital, probably more connections. You haven't gotten worse. The problem is that you've trained your mind to stop believing in you. And that is the real burnout. It's not fatigue, it's actual disbelief. When we're young, self-belief is the default. You had no proof that you couldn't get what you wanted. You shrugged off your mistakes without second thoughts. And when you fell short, you didn't see it as evidence against you. You just tried again until successful. But at some point, your results deviated from your expectations a little bit too much. And over time, every missed deadline, every broken promise, and every plan abandoned quietly rewired a new you. Each failure became a data point your subconscious used to update your identity to the one of someone who doesn't mean what he says. And eventually, your brain literally stops letting you play big, not because you are lazy, but because it is protecting you from failure. And that's what most people don't understand about self-sabotage. It's not irrational, it's hyper-rational from the perspective of your subconscious. It just prevents you from being disappointed. Your mind, your brain eventually learns that ambitious equals danger. And since big goals always create big friction, it becomes hard to handle subconsciously, so it keeps you playing small. The risk is that self-protection ends up becoming a prison, because your growth only happens when you actually risk something. It happens outside of your comfort zone. And this gets worse with age. A 22-year-old who fails isn't a failed entrepreneur. He's just trying things. But a 45-year-old who fails, he's confirming a feared identity, the person who tried but couldn't make it. And the older you get, the higher the emotional stake. Each attempt stops being a bet on your goal and a referendum on who you think you are. I've seen this hundreds of times, and I've seen this a lot in older founders. They freeze, not because they don't know what to do, but because each new failure threatens their self-concept. And to make matter worse, your mind keeps a biased score. One broken promise can erase 10 kept ones. And that is a natural evolutionary encoded negativity bias, a primitive survival feature. This helps our ancestors stay alive in the savannah, but it does not help you scale your company. And it records failure 10 times more than it records success. So every new attempt carries the ghost of every past disappointment. And you can't rebuild your self-trust a 1-1 ratio. It's more like a 10-1 ratio. You need 10 small proof that you will follow through for every old evidence of failure. That is how you override the ledger. The bad news is, the longer you tolerate this low performance, the deeper the groove becomes in your brain and the harder it is to climb out. The good news is that it can be rewired. Now, most people will cope by lowering the bar, by setting smaller promises that they can keep and safe again. But that is not really growth. That is just damage control. The real way out is to be incredibly ambitious, is to actually set a goal that is 10 times larger than you would be comfortable with, but then have small and essential quests center around the personal inadequacies that right now are preventing you from achieving that goal. Those high relevance winnable proofs tied to specific constraints is what compounds your ability to rewire your brain. And these quests are really exposure therapy for our inadequacies. Just like when you're afraid of heights, right? The key when you're afraid of heights, I'm massively afraid of heights, is not to avoid it, but to safely and repeatedly expose yourself until your brain learns that the threat isn't real. I climb high mountains and I am terribly scared of heights, and I do it through exposure therapy. And every exposure rewires the neural pathways that associate the stimulus with the fear. Let me give you a business example. For the longest time, I struggled with rejection when doing outreach. So I forced myself to call 100 people a day until I rewired the default reaction to that. I did controlled exposure to the rejection I was avoiding, to the point that it ended up being something I was looking forward to. For me, it was cold calling, but for you, it can be publishing content or pitching investors or delegating, whatever it is. The thing is that we don't go about this randomly. We do it systematically. We carefully select our vision. We carefully choose our quests and follow protocols and systems to get what we want. And that is contrary to what most gurus will tell you. You don't rebuild trust by trying a lot of things. You rebuild by stacking undeniable proof, because every broken promise weighs 10 times more heavily than a kept one. So each win must be intentional. As I tell my clients, we're always one system and one transformation away from any goal we want. And the system is just the repeatable cause and effect structure that replaces chaos with clarity. And the transformation is the internal rewiring that lets you run the system without doubt, distraction, or burnout. The problem is that you've been sold this idea that systems solves everything, but for most people, systems are just a way of avoiding the psychological work. They think that if they have the perfect system, the perfect morning, the perfect delegation, the perfect productivity app, they will not have to rewire themselves. But that is just system hopping. It never works. The system is not the problem. Their nervous system seeing the problem as another promise they will break, that's the problem. So, in other words, you can't hack your way around broken self-trust. You must rebuild it one system at a time and executing without your brain fighting you. If you're currently not getting what you want, that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means that you are untrained. You are running an old mental operating system that isn't well suited for the fight you're in. You may have built systems for your business, but none for your brain. And what you need to do is to recreate your self-trust through actual proof, through evidence, not through empty affirmations or motivation, through actual systems that force competence, through transformation that rewire the patterns that keep you stuck. But most people try to do this alone, and they create unnecessary complicated stuff that never quite works. And they try to fix the wrong thing because the mental patterns sabotaging your execution right now are below your conscious awareness. You need an external system that maps your specific friction points, that designs systems for your constraints and guides the transformation to let you execute without fighting yourself. There are a zillion systems, but our Selfmastered has the highest success rate. So if you truly want to rebuild your self-trust and actually get somewhere within 16 weeks that you would never have achieved on your own, and actually have proof that that is the case, book a recording session below, and if we find that we can help you, we will tell you how everything works. Until next time.